we need to have a talk. I've been a part of the design community for almost 10 years, and in that time, I've learned a thing or two. And one of the things that I've learned is that designers don't know what they don't know. There's a lot of ideas and terms that get thrown around, but we really don't have a really strong definition to describe what they are. One of those being two terms that I see being used interchangeably very often, which is branding and visual identity. And to be very clear, I'm 100% guilty of doing this myself. I mean, you can even look at some of the YouTube videos that I've made here and you can see that I'm using branding and visual identity interchangeably. I'll talk more about that specifically later in the video, but right now I want to cover what is the difference between visual identity and branding. What are the differences between these two terms and why does it matter? So let's start with visual identity. There's not really a set definition for it, but what I would say is it's a compilation of all the visual elements that make up a brand. Most designers are very familiar with these visual aspects. Things like logos, colors, typography, patterns, textures. All of these elements contribute to giving a company an actual identity in the world. Hence the term visual identity. Now this is typically the very first interaction someone's going to have with a brand. The very first time that they even realize that the brand exists, it's probably going to be in some sort of visual way. So the visuals need to stand out from competitors, catch someone's eye, and resonate with the audience that they're trying to capture. Approximately 55% of all first impressions are based on the visuals. So it's definitely a big piece of the puzzle, but it's not the entire thing. There are still some missing elements that make up a strong and successful brand. So that leads us to our next question, which is, what is a brand? Let's start with a quote from Marty Neumeier, the author of The Brand Gap. A brand is a customer's gut feeling about a product, service, or company. Notice how he doesn't say anything about the visuals, because a brand isn't a summation of all the visual elements. Branding is something that we don't actually get to control, we only get to influence. Because there's nothing that I can physically do to make you feel a certain way about a brand, but I can make strategic decisions that might influence somebody to feel a certain way about a brand. So of course the visuals do play an important role, but there's so many other things to consider. What was the customer experience like? What was it like using the website? What does the store feel like? Is it brightly lit with lots of colors? Or maybe it's muted with more dimly lit light? What kind of copy do they use? Are they very professional, uptight, or maybe they're a little bit more young and adventurous? What kind of things does the company believe in? What are their values? Do they believe in sustainability, or maybe they're focused on helping impoverished children? Maybe it's something a little bit more straightforward, like pushing the boundaries of a specific sport or athletic pursuit. None of what I mentioned is part of the visual identity, but it all goes into someone's gut feeling about a brand. Let me bring up some more statistics to drive home my point. 52% of customers buy from brands that stand for something. 88% of customers value authenticity. 60% of customers will share brands they love. And 81% of customers need to trust a brand before they'll buy. So how do you make a brand that people can trust, love, and want to share with others? The brand has to make a promise, and then it has to keep it. Let's look at this from the perspective of a visual identity. You can make all of the right decisions, and you can make a brand, or let's say a package design scream, we believe in sustainability, we're very eco-friendly. Okay, but what else? I mean, I could put on a business suit, but that doesn't necessarily make me a businessman, does it? I could put on a uniform for a football team, but does it make me a football player? So a big thing that makes a brand trustworthy or lovable is making that promise and sticking to it. So if you say that you're a brand that believes in sustainability, you better make sure that that's the case. Is the packaging design for your product eco-friendly? Is it recyclable, or was it made from recyclable materials? Do you donate a portion of your profits to helping the world be a little bit cleaner? Do you avoid working or collaborating with companies that do not align with your values? There's 1,000 different things that I can name off, but really what it is you have to walk the walk and you have to talk the talk. So when a brand makes a promise and they keep it, it builds trust. And whenever you build up that trust with people, people can begin to love your brand. They'll be more likely to share the brand with others because it's something that they believe in and they can see that you also believe in it too. And while the visual elements of a brand play a part in that, they can't do it alone. And that's why it's so important to know the difference between branding and visual identity. They are not one and the same. Visual identity is only one part of branding. So if you say that you do branding, you better do a lot more than just make a logo and change some colors. Okay, super quick plug. I just opened up a store with some really cool merch designs, as well as some of my poster designs, some design assets. So if that's something that you're interested in, please go check it out. All right, back to the video. Now at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I'm still currently using the wrong terms. I know it would probably look pretty hypocritical, but there's a time and place to be correct, and there's a time and place to just kind of shut up and do the right thing. And mostly what it boils down to is what's going to make the most sense for the audience that you're trying to reach. So let me give you a good example. Imagine you go to a networking event, someone walks up to you and they ask, "What do you do?" Now you could say, oh, I'm a visual identity designer, but they don't even really know what that means. Really, that's just some graphic design jargon that we should know the difference, but for most people, what they're familiar with is branding. So in this scenario, rather than trying to educate them or go through this entire process of trying to tell the difference, you just say, I'm a brand designer. And in that way, you're able to meet them where they're at. You're not trying to educate them or talk over them or be too technical. You're just talking to them in a definition that they understand. Now, let's say later down the road, they want to hire you and they start talking to you and you start having conversations. Now you can bring up the difference because now they actually need to know the difference between branding and visual identity. And that's more or less why I use the term brand identity in my videos instead of visual identity. I know it's not the correct term, but it's the term that I know clients will be able to identify with, and unfortunately is the term that I also know a lot of graphic designers use. So I could use the term visual identity, but I know it might cause confusion in potential clients, and then also for graphic designers, they're not typically looking up visual identity on YouTube. Rather, they're looking up brand identity. So as someone who wants to grow my audience of graphic designers, I kind of have to go with the flow. The term brand identity is the one that they know, just kind of what I have to use. But if you look on my website, I actually use visual identity because I want to be a little bit more specific, especially when I'm working directly with a client. So let's quickly recap. Visual identity is not branding, and branding is not visual identity. The visual identity is just one part of the brand, but it's not the entire thing. A brand is first and foremost a customer's gut feeling about a product, service, company, and secondly, it's a promise and a promise kept. Hopefully from this video, you have a better understanding of the difference between these terms, why it matters, and how you can use it to be a better designer and business owner. But if you're someone who's interested in visual design, I actually have a couple more videos on the topic, and you can check those out and watch my process. Or maybe you're looking for something a little bit different. Well, I've got a bunch of different videos on my channel covering a bunch of different topics, so check it out and see if you can find something you like. And if you do find something that you like, I'd appreciate it if you would leave a like and subscribe. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next video.